Welcome! Today, we'll be looking at a demonstration built on the Appian platform for the immigrant visa process. The current state is plagued with dated technology which reduces overall transparency and hampers agents' ability to properly screen applicants. This disjointed approach leads to less trust and more obstacles when it comes to processing these visas. So to begin our demo, we'll first be looking at the visa system through the lens of an applicant applying for a visa. We've created a public-facing portal for unauthenticated users to submit an initial application, check on the status of that application, as well as sign into their accounts once they're authenticated. This page, like many we'll see in the rest of the demo, is readily configurable to meet the needs of what other requirements the organization may have, whether it's 508 compliance or other design standards. On this page of the site, we've taken information from the DS5501 form for visa entry. One of the first steps is to submit a copy of the applicant's passport. So here we have two examples. The first is actually going to be an expired passport. Here we baked in our private AI capabilities to read the information from that document and automatically populate subsequent fields. Not only that, we also have a validation rule that makes sure the passport isn't expired or otherwise invalid to reduce the amount of back and forth between the applicant and the ultimate reviewing officer. So let's go ahead and put in a valid passport and have the system process that. We should see soon that it's able to extract all the key values from this passport and automatically populate a lot of the form information for a user to again save them additional time. So once they've gone through, the user can correct any mistakes that might have happened as a result of the processing. Here we're just going to save time by autofilling this information and also going to include my email address so we can track some of those changes. We can also see that there are validation rules that ensure that the user is only entering clean data, again, to reduce the amount of errors and that back and forth that has to occur. We can upload additional files such as a headshot and any other supplemental documentation that is needed. In this case, I wanted to show the dynamic nature of these web forms. So we showed that the user has a spouse. And as a result, in this derivative sections, we have to fill out that spouse's information. However, if we go back through and change this to say we're unmarried, then the form will automatically update to reflect that so that the user is only entering information that they need. Again, saving the ultimate user time and making their overall experience much more positive. So let's wrap up this form by finishing the derivative section before reviewing and submitting this application. And so as soon as I hit submit, I'll get a success message as well as a unique identifier for me to track the status of the application. Additionally, I'll receive an email notification with this information, so if I ever lose track of this figure, we can grab that. But here we're just showing we can check the application status, it's pending, and let's see if I can pull up the email. And so now that the user is registered, they have access to their applicant dashboard. This gives the user a broad overview of the remaining processes to give them more transparency into the status of their application. Down the right-hand side, we have the Action Center, which has all the steps required of them and the consular official. So let's complete the first one. The first task is to confirm qualifications based off of my country of origin and level of education or work experience. So we'll just submit that. Next, we have to submit a payment. So with this, we have to first select all those that we want to process an application for with a different price, and it's able to automatically calculate that. And then here we've simulated an integration with pay.gov where we're able to upload the banking information here and not have the user have to jump between multiple different systems, muddying the waters even more. The subsequent step is to complete an additional form, this DS260 application. So it gives us a lot of information. Now this is a pretty lengthy form, so we wanted to make this as dynamic as possible. Here's some initial questionnaire that configures the ultimate layout of this form. So here I selected that I do have a previous spouse. So we should see, yes, we have a section for previous spouse. Versus if we change that field to no, we should go back to the family section and see that that previous spouse section is now gone. So the user only has to fill out the data that is required of them. We're enhancing their experience and reducing the amount of questions. Now we understand that these forms can take a long time to process, so we've included the ability to save progress and then return to the form and pick up where they left off, because oftentimes you have to gather many different forms in order to complete these. Well, let's skip through to the end and just submit this. Don't want to waste too much time on that. Now the final step for the applicant is to submit their supporting documentation. So here we have a validation rule that just illustrates that this documentation is incomplete. I'm not allowed to submit it. So let's go through and upload these different documents. Some that I might not have a record to submit, I can just check that box. And so all these documents are being locally stored in Appian. However, we can just as easily integrate with a third-party document management tool in order to store them. But having these all within Appian allows us to surface this information, perform those generative AI functions, and extract key data elements from this without the user having to manually go in, scan them themselves. And so after we finish that task, we can see the overall status of our application updated to under review. We have a banner telling us what's the next steps. And then we can also see what steps are to come from the consular's perspective. So again, giving us more visibility. So now we are switching over to the consular user. We can see a few key elements to complete my job. In addition to these high-level metrics, we also get all the different applications that are assigned to my team, as well as a message center to centralize the communication between the consulars and the applicants. And then we also see my tasks. So this is the next step in the process. It's for me to validate the submitted documents by our applicant. And so first I can either accept or I can reassign this task to another member of my team if I'm busy, but I can go through, check every single document that was submitted, and validate them as adequate for these purposes. So since this is a happy path, I'm just going to validate all and click submit. Now for us, but in the meantime, I do want to illustrate that messaging functionality we had before. So here we're looking at a compilation of all the information we have on the applicant. Now I can send a message directly from the applicant based off of all this information I have. Maybe I have a follow-up question about maybe her criminal history. So I can send that from directly within the portal. I don't have to track these in different email threads. By centralizing this, it also ensures that we have a throughput. If I'm ever out of office, one of my colleagues can pick up where I left off. Now the next step in the applicant process is to schedule an interview. So we'll do just that. Here we have a table where I need to schedule our interview appointment for our applicant Naracha. And so we have a fairly simple calendar set up for us for me to create an appointment. Now here again is another opportunity to integrate with maybe an Outlook or another scheduling system. So with that, there is one final task for our consular official to complete before we conduct that interview, and that is to conduct interview planning. I need to decide what questions are required of me in order to be satisfied with giving a visa. So within this pre-interview planning, again, I have all the documentation I need at my disposal in order to select different questions. Here we have AI analyzing all these documents and suggesting some questions for me as well. So I'm selecting all the various ones that I need in order to execute my interview to the fullest. So we have these standard lists of questions, but we can also create a custom question as well. So maybe I want to know the mother's name. Once I'm satisfied with all these interview questions, then I can go ahead and submit, and I should be ready to conduct the interview. Now really quick, let's see what this looks like on the applicant's side. So they should have received this email where they have a QR code where our consular, they take this to the consular official during their appointment. They can scan it with their tablet or their phone, and then they can immediately start the interview from there if they don't have their desktop. Similarly, from the applicant dashboard, we should see all the information related to the interview, such as the time and date that it's scheduled, and we can see the messages that have come in as well within this portal. So again, multiple places for them to access this information. Now, in order to conduct the interview, the consular could scan that QR code, or they can access the interview directly within their desktop application. And so here we have the conduct interview task. This is where we have a detailed listing of all the questions that we set up in the beginning. So we would go through, ask these questions of our applicant, have it in a very structured format, and then I can provide some notes or even an attachment if there's some supplemental information I need. Then I mark each of these questions as either satisfactory, incomplete, or unsatisfactory. So in this case, we have a follow-up required. Maybe we want to add like the doctor's note that came out of it. We could do just that. And so once we are done with all these questions, then we need to provide a final determination on whether or not we want to grant the visa. So with that, we can just go down the happy path and approve. We think this is sufficient to grant the visa and complete that interview. And so at that stage, this visa application is approved. We can flip over again to the applicant's portal. We can see the update that the application has been approved. We can even see the digital visa that was produced for them. And so this takes a process that was previously extremely manual and extremely long and simplifies it. So we saw how Appian can facilitate this visa application workflow in a manner that is efficient and transparent. The flexibility of the system empowers different teams to mold applications to fit the needs of immigration and permitting agencies, as well as any other government body. So with that, thank you all for watching this video. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.